Oh my God. They found me. I don't know how, but they found me.
Run for it, Marty!
Hey YouTube, Phatpastor here. Gonna try something new tonight. I'm going to try to do a video with StreamYard live, and tonight's video is updating the Mobula6 HDZERO to ExpressLRS 4.2 and Betaflight 4.4. This is still in the original Flash, and I'm going to take you through step by step with screen recordings and bench cam and all of that, in hopes that at the end of this video you will know exactly how to take your Mobula6 HDZERO from Betaflight 4.3 to 4.3.1, which is required, then to 4.4, and be able to connect it to your ExpressLRS modules running 3.0 and above. So let's get into it. The first thing that we're going to have to do here is we need to do a backup. I don't recommend trying this without a complete dump and diff all, so I like to err on the side of caution. Let's zoom in here on the Betaflight screen. I'm just plugging up my quad right now into Betaflight. If you hear a fan noise, it is because I will be running a fan tonight. You might hear that right now, and that is to keep this quad cool. So hopefully you can see that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the presets, and we're going to go over here to the top and pick the top right, hit save backup. Now this is my understanding, this is the same thing as a dump, and this is called my Mobula6 HDZERO, and I'm going to name this B4, and I'm going to hit save. So now we have a backup, but I like to be over redundant, just so that you know that you got it. So I like to go to the CLI and come down here in the bottom and type DUMP and hit enter. This is a full dump. When that's done, you will go over to the furthest right on the bottom and click save to file. And you can also notice right on the bottom, right under save to file, it will tell you that it is it says crazy beef, or crazy BF4 SX128. It's kind of the target. It lets you know that. So I'm going to name this, I'm just going to call it DMP B4. So that's my dump 4, and I'm going to save it. And I know some of you are saying, well, Phatpastor, what about a diff all? That's the next thing, just to be safe. I'm not going to end up using these, hopefully, but it's always better to have them in case something goes wrong. So we type DIFF space ALL in the CLI command line, press enter, let it do its thing, and when we're done, we will do the same thing. Go over to the bottom right and save to file. And I'll just call this DFB4, before the flash. Now, if you need to, it's also recommend this if you've never done this before. Right here, go ahead and type VERISON version, hit enter, and it will tell you that this is the crazy B F4 SX1280, and it is running Betaflight 4.3.0, so that's important to remember. Most of these come with Betaflight 4.3.0. Now, the next thing we will need to do is you'll need to go to, and I'll need to open another window for this. Let's close out of this for the time being, unplug our quad. So the next thing we need to do is I need to go to Happy Model, share my screen again. All of these links will be down in the description below of where you can find the files here. So we're going to go to download. We are looking for this here. I believe it is Mobula6 7. Any of the Mobulas are the same one. Okay, what we're looking for here is we're looking for this. The very bottom one is the Betaflight 4.3.1 support for ELRS version 3.0. You want to download that by clicking on it, and it'll come up here in your thing. Save it to wherever you want it to be saved. You can open the file to see where it's at. Leave that file open if you want to. Mine is located in my downloads. We've got this file. You can right click on it and extract it, extract all, and that's going to put it in your downloads. Then you'll get this icon that comes up, and it'll say where you want to downloads. I don't know that I want it in downloads. Let's put it in documents. So you put it wherever you want to. Just remember where you put it, and because you're going to need that. It's important. You cannot skip this process if you are going to be flying this on ExpressLRS 3.0 and above, and eventually everything's going to have to go there. So I recommend that you do that. What the 4.3.1 does, my understanding, and of course, let me say this video is my way of doing this. There's not a lot of information on it from HDZERO or Happy Model. This is how I've done it. I've already done a few quads. I've done my Pro 35mm frame. I've done the Mobula6 7. I've done the Walksnail. I've done several of them, so I wanted to get the process down before I tried to tell you how to do it. So this is how I do it. You can do it differently if you want to, but this is for those of you that don't want to go through that process, that learning curve and that process. So now that we have the backup, 3 of them, we have the preset backup, we have the dump, and we have the diff all. So we have 3 backups. Now we're fixing to flash this thing out of Betaflight 4.3.0, and we're going to flash it to Betaflight 4.3.1 because my understanding is Happy Model wrote in the firmware that's needed for Betaflight for ExpressLRS 3.0 and above, bakes it into this hex. So let's go down here to the CLI, and in the CLI type B as in Bob and L as in Larry. Hit enter. And if you'll notice up at the top of the screen, it has changed to DFU STM bootloader mode. Now the quad is in bootloader mode. Now we want to go to update and flash firmware. It's okay that it's not auto detecting it because you need to be running the newest Betaflight configurator. If you haven't done that, there'll be a link down in the description below of how to load Betaflight 10.9, I believe it is, but you have to have that latest version to go to 4.4. You don't have to do it to do what I'm about to do here. If you don't care about going to 4.4, you can do this on 10.8. Just flash to 4.3.1 and you'll be fine. That's why this is going to be in a separate video. If you want to go all the way to 4.4, you need to get the newest Betaflight configurator and do it all that way. So we're going to load firmware local all the way over in the lower right. The very last button is load firmware local. You'll click on that and it will ask you where it's at, and I put mine in documents. So I'm going to click on the Betaflight 4.3.1 beef 4SX 1280 underscore ICM 42688 P as in Paul underscore ELRS underscore 3.HEX. I'm going to hit open. Notice down here in the gray bar, it's showing you that the hex is loaded. And then you go to the right, the second one from the right, and you click flash firmware. But before you do that, make sure that full chip erase is turned on. And then we're going to go down to the bottom and click flash firmware. Right now it's erasing everything off of the flight controller. This is the spooky part, isn't it? Now it's flashing. This will take a few seconds, shouldn't take too long. Do not unplug it at this point. It's not a time to be messing with your USB cable or anything. Put it in a place and let it sit. It's only going to be a minute at the most to flash it, and it will be done. All right, so it is done. So what we'll do is what I like to do is I like to unplug the quad at this time from Betaflight, disconnecting it. All right, what I'm going to do now is I could go ahead and bind this to ExpressLRS 3.0, which is on my Ranger. If you have the Ranger module, it can't go below 3.0. And I'm using the Boxer with the new Ranger module in the back of it. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. But I've learned that once all you have to do is flash and get that ELRS hardware on here from 4.3.1. Now I'm going to go on to Betaflight 4.4. And some of you may be asking, Phatpastor, I thought you was one that, flash it and leave it. Yes, I am. And one of the main reasons why I did that is because of the Walksnails. I had to take them to 4.4 to get the HD OSD. You'll see that that makes a big difference. You get the full OSD array, and I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take my HDZEROs to 4.4. And knowing me, they'll probably be there until something comes out to replace them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back in to Betaflight, and I'm going to go ahead and just flash it to Betaflight 4.4. If you notice now, it's auto detected it as the Crazy Bee F4 flight controller. It's found it here. Crazy Beef is what I like to call it. The Crazy Beef ASX 1280, and I'm going to flash it to 4.4.0, which is the 29th of January 2023. Whenever you're watching this, there may be a newer version or whatever, but after doing the 4.3.1, you're free to flash it on up till the time of this video. If you're watching a year or so later, check and see what the newest stuff is, or put a comment below and I will answer it. Do not click the core only here, but what I do is this GPS that's below it, I turn that off because this is Tinywhoop. I don't need LED strips on a Tinywhoop, but everything else I'm going to leave it the same. And what this does, this is going to free up some room in case there's ever anything in the future. You're not going to be running GPS or an intricate LED. Now, some of you that are flying newbie drones with their addressable LEDs and all of that, newbie drone's different. It's got its own hex and all of that. We're doing the Mobula6 HDZERO. So I leave everything else the same, and I go down here to load firmware online. This is the standard way that we flash, and I'm going to hit flash firmware. That's erasing. And it's flashing like before. Don't move it around. Don't don't mess with your USB cable. Just let it do its thing. And when it's done, we will get into the interesting parts that in my opinion, are not very hard at all. 4.4 makes things quite a bit easier, in my opinion. So I'm going to, I always just like to unplug it just to cycle the quad. So now we can go in, and I'll go up here to welcome, and I click connect. You want to apply custom defaults here. Be sure that you apply custom defaults. This is the things that are different between your flash that was on it and the one you put on it. Now you're going to get this warning. It says that there's some problems that have occurred. You know, your motor outputs are not right. And until we go into the motors tab and fix this, you're going to keep seeing this. But we're not going to fix that right off the first. We're going to go close. And the first thing that we're going to do is you want to look up the UAV Tech. This is the preset I use, the UAV Tech 1S and 2S Whoop. So it's UAV Tech Whoop 1S and 2S. So you click that and you'll choose your desired. I keep it at medium build quality. We will be flashing this to Blue Jay at 48K ESC. So pick that center one. So the second one from the top, and then the second one from the top on the second version. And I click dynamic idle, which is bidirectional D shot. And then you come down to the lower right and you select pick. You agree. And then I like to save and reboot each time I do it, just in case something fails. I tend to err on the side of caution with flashing because I'm too prone to forget things. So here we go with our error again because we've not fixed the motors. So just close that out. I am running ExpressLRS 250 Hertz. So you can search, you can do these pull downs up here and you can look for RC link, which will show up your ExpressLRS, or you can simply type here in the search bar ExpressLRS, UAV Tech, or HDZERO. These are the three that we're going to be using. So here you could just type EX will get you there. It pulls up ExpressLRS. Now this is the different hertz that you want to run it at. You want to run it at 50 hertz, 500 hertz, 150 hertz. I run my whoops at 250 hertz. So let's click this. It says we need to select the option here. What kind of whoop do you want? Racing, freestyle, freestyle HD, cinematic. I'm going to pick for this one racing, and it is SPI on the flight controller. So you want to select the bottom one in the second subcategory. It is single cell voltage because this is the 1S whoop. I don't pick anything for the rates, cinematic rates. It's optional. So I hit pick, go down to the bottom right, save and reboot. So we have done basically the tune and the setup and the RC link. Now we need to set up the HDzero VTX, which lucky for us, Sugar K has a preset. Here you can go into your search and type HDZ and voila, there it comes. Pull it up. This is where I got a little confused at first. You want to map to DisplayPort and you want all VTXs except the unlocked freestyle and the TMX, that's the old 5M1. I know from experience with this model that the VTX is on UART2. It is on all of them. So we are flashing this specifically. If you are doing another model that you built, you need to know what UART your VTX is on. Pick that UART2 and then hit select pick, agree, save and reboot. Okay, now everything should be set up fairly close except for our motors, and we need to bind. Before we go into the motors tab, we're going to go into the receiver tab, grab your radio, our ExpressLRS radio. All right, so I have it set up on my model. I use one model for all of my ExpressLRS quads. So I have my radio on. We are in the receiver tab. Now, all that I do is I come in here and I put in my bind phrase. Now, I'm not going to let you see my bind phrase. Whatever your bind phrase is, you type it in here. If you don't have a bind phrase, then you can just go down to the bottom and hit bind receiver, but I don't recommend that. Then you go down to the bottom and hit bind receiver and then save and reboot. Of course, when you do that, you still got the error, but you should now that easy. Check your switches, make sure your switches are working, all of that, because the next thing we're going to do is go down to the bottom and hit save. I don't use deadband. I don't think you need to with, in my opinion, with this particular radio. Notice my sticks are still. They're not jumping around, they're not moving around. You know, aux 8 is a little off, but that's okay. I'm not using it. So let's go to modes and let's set up our modes. All right. So arming, we're going to add range. I like to use the old what I call the old Spectrum arm position, which is opposite from a lot of people, but you pick your arm position. It just needs to be all the way forward. I do run angle, horizon, and acro on all of mine because I let beginners fly my quads and people at many different levels. I forgot to do something, and we will go back and take care of that here in just a second. Let me go ahead and save because I've got my arm and my angle and my horizon. But Betaflight does something that I don't do. And let me save and go to the configuration tab. While we're here, we'll check a few things. I like to go ahead and pick the RX loss and reset. Craft name is Mob6 HDL. No, HDZERO. Mobula6 HDZERO. OG. Capital OG. OG. And then below that in 4.4, you can put your pilot name. This is good for racing so that if someone else is flying your craft, we want to change this arming angle to 180. Now, the rest of the stuff here is personal preferences, but I always turn off air mode. I want air mode on a switch. I do not want my angle to be bouncing around like crazy when I'm trying to launch, even though I do race in mostly in acro. So let's save and reboot. Close. While I'm thinking about it, let's go ahead and do the battery thing because I'm sure it's changed it. It has. I don't want it flashing at me at 3.3. I tell it to minimum cell voltage is 3.1 and for it to start warning me at 3.2. And since I HV charge, make the maximum cell voltage 4.5. We can calibrate later because I've learned that none of them are exactly the same. Let's go into PID tuning. Rates is what I want to change. I'm not going to mess with filtering right now. I don't care if it's actual rates or whatever. I want 533. 540 is good enough. Remember, this is a racing quad. Let's give it a little bit of expo, 0.1 expo. And I know a little bit about these quads with what props I have on them. I know that mine hovers around 44. And you can give yourself a little bit of throttle expo if you're racing with it. I'll also give that about 1.5, and then you hit save. That's just going to give you a little bit smoother feel in the mid stick and your throttle. That's all. And the mid it'll just help you out. But you don't have to change any of that. You can go with the stock Betaflight if you want to. Matter of fact, if you don't know what you're doing, just go ahead and do that because it's pretty good. All right. The next thing is I'm going to set up the OSD real quick. We want to go over here and hit HD. And I like imperial units. I like to pick clarity while I'm sitting for no other reason. It just helps me see it better. It's the 1S. I normally use average battery cell voltage, but being that it's a 1S, I just click battery voltage. You can populate this thing pretty close to the edges everywhere. I like the little crosshairs that it gives you now. It kind of shows you what the center is. I like craft name. Normally put the craft name up here in the top. And this is all preference to where you want to put it, how you want to do it. It's, that this is you. You do you here. I'm just showing you how I do me. I like to put whether I'm in angle or whatever. If you're flying HDZERO, you don't need to put the channel because it's going to tell you right above the center of where I've got the craft name. So you don't have to worry about that. HDZERO will tell you what channel you're on. I like link quality, and I like to put that up in the top right. And I've noticed that some of my goggles that you don't have as much space on the right as you do on the left. It will cut off these zeros there. On that, if you let it. Pilot name, I do like to add that because this is a racer. We can go in and change that real quick in a race if somebody's using my quad. It's pretty difficult if we've had this before in races where we've had three people using one of my quads and all of the video signals on the screen are showing Phatpastor. So it makes it hard to call the race. What are some other things? I do not do RC channel, RSSI value. You can put that in there. It's ExpressLRS. What's it going to matter? But we'll throw it in there for giggles. Again, it's a whoop. I use throttle position. We do timer 2 first, and then throttle position as I put these two relative to each other. I don't ever use timer 1. I like timer 2, just what I use. And let's move this over a little bit. Now, I could have pulled this stuff from the diff possibly, but why? This is not like this is it's hard to do. You can cut and paste this if you wanted to. There are some things that I don't want to show. This is over here on the right side of the screen. It's post-flight statistics. I don't care about how many milliamp. This is not a long-range quad. I want to know the battery voltage, the battery in voltage, the minimum voltage. I don't care about black box. You might. I don't. Some of this stuff is subjective. I do want link quality minimum. I don't care about the maximum speed. That's just a guesstimate anyway. I do like the G-force sometimes to see if I crash really hard. Sometimes that can tell you just how hard you crashed. All right, and then we're going to save it. And that will do it for our OSD. Video transmitter, it's not as important because all of that's going to be done through the presets anyway. It does have the correct values here. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the CLI and I'm going to make a preliminary dump. I'm going to call this 4.4 because we need to go back to modes and finish modes. Now back to modes. We did all of that so that air mode would be on a switch. For beeper, I want the beeper to be on this switch and I want it to be in that position. I want OSD disabled. This is really good in HDZERO because you can turn the OSD off. Now you still have your warnings and stuff that will pop up, but there's another way to do it. But that's another video for another time. Air mode. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. We want air mode to be on. Let's leave it on auto, just so that in case you forgot which one it is, you move that switch. And I like for it to be air mode to be both in horizon and acro. So I do the first 2 sets there. Launch control, I'm going to put that on a momentary switch. This switch, that when that's in that, it's in launch control. That'll cause the quad to tip forward prior to launching in the race. Just only if you're really good, I think, does it make a big difference. But it's fun. That's what this hobby's about, isn't it? It's about having fun. So my modes are set up. Now let's do the dump. DUMP in the CLI. This is a preliminary dump. And like before, I'm going to go in and save it to a file because I'm not done. This is just another part that I'm old school in computers. Save, and save. So let's go to save to file and I'm going to call this, let's call it 44 OG because later after I get it right, it can be 44 OG 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just know the latest number is the latest flash. So let's save it. Now, a couple of important things here. Disconnect from Betaflight. What I've figured out with most of these HDZERO, even though you do full chip erase, it has not been only in one of mine, and that was the Walksnail. Did it actually delete the BO heli setting? So if you've already flashed it to Blue Jay, most likely you won't have to. The quickest and easiest way to tell is if you have set up a custom melody and it appears that mine is still working. So that's what it's been on 3 of the 4 that I've flashed. So you probably won't have to do that. But if you do, there'll be a link in the description below on how to flash your quad over in Blue Jay. Now you're plugged up. The VTX is on. Make sure you are in the fan here. So now's when we're going to get into the motors tab and we're going to fix this problem that's been lurking the whole time. I run my props out. We're going to set D-Shot 300, bidirectional D-Shot. Agree. Make sure you change the motor poles right under bidirectional D-Shot to 12 motor poles. Then go over to the bottom right and save and robot. It's still saying that there's a problem, so we're going to fix it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check the motor order with the battery plugged up. I understand the risk. This is a whoop. You can do it with the props on. Just be careful. Don't let it fly into your face. It'll start spinning the motor, and then you click the one that it's spinning. That one. That one. That one. And then you save. All right. Still got the motor problems. The next thing is motor direction. Make sure you're still props out. I understand the risks. And I like to do the wizard. Spin the motors. And I take my finger and I kind of press down on them. And number 1 looks right. 2 looks right. 3 looks right. 4 is wrong. So let's take 4, click that, and close. Now, the next thing I like to do, just to check it all out, is go down here and turn your motors on, and one at a time, raise the motor. And you can feel if it's blowing air down. It's a Tinywhoop. Motor number 1. That's right. Motor number 2. That's right. Motor number 3. That's right. Come on, motor number 4. Be right. It's right. All right. Okay. Now, that being said, there's a few things that I like to set up in CLI just because I like to set it up. You don't have to do these. This is just me. I'm going to finish setting up my quad and we're going to unplug the battery because we don't need it to be sitting here cooking anymore. And it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and give it a reboot by unplugging it and plugging it back up again. I've had some people tell me that that really doesn't help a lot, but it makes me feel better. My accelerometer needs to be calibrationed. So let's see if that's right. No. And I think it's because in configuration, it's got the gyro at 90 for that hex. And let's try to default and see what it does. It's either 0 or default. Let me go back in to set up, calibrate the accelerometer, and then left, right, back, forward. Yes, there we go. That is correct. Now let's go into the CLI and I want you to type GET space PIDSUM. Enter. That's get PID sum. And what we're going to do is we're going to set our PID sum limit to 1,000. Just copy that, Control C, go down here, type SET space PID sum or Control V, PID sum underscore LIMIT space equals space 1,000. Hit enter. Another thing I want you to type is GET space CRASH. Hit crash. Hit enter. And we are looking to turn on crash recovery. It's down here toward the bottom, right near the bottom of it. You'll see that crash recovery comes set default as off. So you'll copy the line that says crash recovery with a Control C. You'll go down here in the CLI and type set space Control V and change the off at the end to on. Enter. So now your crash recovery is on. I like to do one more thing, and it's the crash set point threshold right here. It's set default 350, Control C. So we'll go down and we'll type SET again, set space Control V. And notice how that says 350. I'm going to change that to 600. My PID value is at 533 or 540, so I know I can't do a flip or a roll that's fast enough to trigger the crash recovery. So if you're flying at like 1,000 or 800, you want to run this threshold up. So when you're done with all of that, type SAVE, save. You got it saved. Let's do a quick quad cycle. All right, we're almost done. It's kind of wonky. I want to recalibrate that accelerometer. And there we go. Much more. Whenever you see it being real slow, just recalibrate. All right, so I think we are done. Let's go in and do our final dump. DUMP, enter. Let it do its thing. Go over to the far right again, save to a file. And remember, we called this 44OG1. And as I make changes, I go up 2, 3, 4. I save all of my dumps. I keep them because if I make a change and it's like, well, it was better last time, I go back to the previous number. So save and disconnect. All right. Now is the test. Will it test hover or will it flip out? That is the question. All right. Well, welcome to HDX. Just put the battery in and sit it down under the camera and let you guys see how wonky I really am. All right. It arms. Well, that fan. It's flying. Even though it's in the fan. It's it's flying. Let me switch to this other, just my camera, and you can see it fly around the room just for the moment. I like to lower the dynamic idle, and I'll do that later. But as you can see, here it is flying on the Ranger Betaflight 4.4. The RadioMaster Ranger. Don't plug a battery in and smoke. Betaflight 4.4. That is it, guys. There will be a follow up. I'll do a follow up on the live stream with Casey, where we will go into a more fine tune of how to get it flying good. But my experience, what little bit I've flown it outside, I've noticed that it actually flies pretty good on the stock preset tune from UAV Tech. So that was how we flash the HDZERO Mobula6 to Betaflight 4.4 and get it working on ExpressLRS 3.2 for me. So there you go. If you like this video and you learned something, would you click that like button, subscribe, maybe even ring the bell? What helps the channel out if you learn something. If not, that's okay. You ain't got to subscribe. Hope this video helps somebody somewhere. That's why I do it. And remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, if you're in FPV, keep flying and rise up and meet me in the air.